going on, guys? So today we're talking about the best-selling cards under $5 or less. Yu-Gi-Oh! Penny Stock Market Watch. It's interesting. This is the first time top 3 don't have the Megatons, any cards from the Megatons, since the Megatons came out. Obviously, Magnificent Maven has hit the waves, but there's a card from Darkwing Blast that is interesting. This is Destructive Daruma Karma Cannon. It's an ultra rare. So it's probably one of it's not like the hardest ultra rare to pull, but it's definitely not the easiest. It's like right there in the middle. But it does say changes as many monsters on the field as possible to face down defense position. Then, if either player controls a face up monster, they must send all face up monsters they control to the graveyard. So the fact that this hurts both players, the fact that it's a trap card. Here's the thing with trap cards, okay? Because I think some people see like a stun based decks or like trap heavy decks, and they're trying to figure out like why don't people play trap cards? The thing is, right now, and it's kind of been like this since 2015, maybe even before that. Yu-Gi-Oh goes about 3 to 5 turns. Sometimes even like 2 to 5 turns. And the thing is, if you don't open a trap card, any trap card, except for Infinite Impermanence, Typhoon, a trap card that specifically states it can be activated from your hand. If you don't open it, you can't play the trap card until a bare minimum of turn 3. If you don't have it in your opening hand. Because if you draw it the second turn, you gotta set it. And if you draw it on the second turn or your first turn, right, it's the 6th card, you have to set it and then play it on turn 3. Well, we might not see turn 4, right? The fact that it also hurts both players makes this card a lot worse. And another big thing too, I'm curious to see what this card looks like against a Shizu tier element, because it doesn't destroy. And you like to see that. It doesn't target, doesn't destroy. Non-targeting, non-destruction removals is always pretty big. But feels like it wouldn't be that good against tier element. And it's not that good against tier element. And there's a lot of decks right now that are wandering around that are not swarm. Like this is the more value you get out of this card is based on how many cards you have on your field, how many monsters you have on your field versus how many monsters your opponent has on their field. Right? How many monsters did my opponent just flip face down? How many monsters did my opponent just send to the graveyard? Because obviously it's anti-link, right? Because you can't flip link monsters face down. And how many monsters did I just do that for? Right? So now you're also thinking like, oh, I can't run it in Tri-Brigade, I can't really run it in Math Mech, can't run it in Attic Mister, can't run it in Salamangreat, can't run it. Right? And so now there's a lot of decks you can't really run this card in. I think of like Crystal Beast that just came out. Yeah, this feels like it could work pretty well in Crystal Beast, right? So it's a decent card. It did just recently sneak under the $5 mark. I don't necessarily think it's hit its valley either. If you can get this card for like low 4, like, cause like look at everything. I mean, there's literally 1, 2, and this is $4.99. This is $4.98, but 1, 2 is $4.95. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards. Excuse me. 6 really, because this is $4.49. That are under $5, and then it goes back up to $5. If you can get it for like $4.15, $4, especially under $4, then I would pull the trigger, right? But if you're starting to get into like close 5s or like 5.10, 5.15, now you're in a situation where maybe it's not necessarily speaking worth it, because it's a good card, might even be a great card, but I don't think it's a good enough card, especially because it's a trap card, affects both players. I wouldn't personally do it, but it's not that bad. Now, this card is interesting. We talked about Muckraker. We've talked about Muckraker on here before, but the idea is like we will probably see this card again, just like we've seen Muckraker too. I actually really like this card. I've been looking at this card. I actually really like it. And if you look at the Earth Fairies, like when I first saw this card, I looked up a lot of like the Earth Fairies. So there's actually like there's actually like a good amount of Earth Fairy, not like a good amount. There's three, um, but there's a good amount of Earth Fairies, but there's really like three archetypes that come to mind that aren't Gravekeepers. So you have like the Vernus archetype that just came out that also just got new support. You have Fluffles, right? Fluffle dog, Fluffle bear, Fluffle cat, Fluffle sheep. Most of those are Fluffle. Most of those are Fairy Earth. And then you have Madolche, right? Um, Madolche is a little weird because you have to discard a card, so that puts a card in your graveyard. But in some circumstances, in the right hand state, that actually could be really good. And you could also potentially use this as an extender. But here's why, right? So, first off, it discards an Earth Fairy, special summon itself out. 1500 attack, 1800 defense isn't super great, but you place a Gravekeeper's Trap from your deck in the spell trap zone. Now you can banish it from the field or graveyard, which is really good. Target up to 3 cards in the graveyard, shuffle them into the deck. It does get different if you are running this card. This card is garbage. It's interesting, but it is also garbage. Now, when we take a look at Gravekeeper's Trap, right, this has a very interesting effect. Because, like I said, I was looking at these cards just because I've had the Vernus deck for like 2 months now. I feel like I'm getting really close to cracking the code. I might just run Turia with it or Infiltrack Machina with it, but I want to be unique, you know? I like being unique. But this card says, while exchange spirits in the graveyard, your opponent cannot activate effects or cards in the graveyard or special summon monsters from the graveyard. So it's kind of like a Necro Valley. You'd like, if you're a Gravekeeper player, you'd like it to say this card's name is Necro Valley, always Necro Valley, but alas. Or this card, while it's face up on the field, becomes Necro Valley, like named Necro Valley. That would be cool. Because there are a lot of Gravekeeper effects that say, like, if Necro Valley is on the field, blank. Or if Necro Valley is on the field, blank. You can do this, you can do that. This is unaffected. But during your main phase, you can discard 1 card, add a Gravekeeper's or Earth Fairy monster from your deck to your hand, which is actually pretty solid. And then during your opponent's, and this is during the main phase, so you can do this during your opponent's turn and your own turn. But during your opponent's draw phase, before their normal draw, if this card is already face up on the field, you can declare 1 name, look at the card, and if it's a declared name, send it to the graveyard. Now, information is always solid. That's why a card like Appointment of the Red Lotus is limited. It's not just that Appointment of the Red Lotus snipes a card out of your opponent's hand. It's also because you get to look at your opponent's hand. Now, obviously, this doesn't get to look at your opponent's hand, but information in a card game, it's fantastic. And that's what this card gives you. So, this could be an interesting package. It could be an interesting engine. Now, as far as whether or not it's something to invest in, this is another card like this card that we were just talking about that just snuck under the $5 mark. And it did just come out, right? So we have a few more, 221 at 495. It's pretty crazy. But there's a few more before it finally sneaks up above $5, excuse me. But when it comes to whether or not this is a good card to invest in, I mean, obviously you need Gravekeeper's Trap. If you're going to invest in this, you should invest in that. That's only an 80-cent card, though. And here's the thing. There are only, I literally just looked this all up. There are only 58 Earth Fairy monsters, right? So this card doesn't have a lot of synergy points. But if my brain goes like, oh, that Gravekeeper's Trap searches Fluffle Dog and Fluffle Bear, and that could be huge for Fluffles, and oh, this could do stuff for Vernus cards, and this could be interesting there, Madolche, and different things like that. And the fact that this is also kind of better version of DD Crow, and it gets even better if you have Exchange of the Spirit. We're not looking at that card. It's interesting. Yeah, I don't. Also, okay. So as far as Exchange of the Spirit's concerned, there's not a scarce amount of these. Like, there's some potential value here, right? Because if some person, because this is how Yu-Gi-Oh always is, if some person finds some weird interaction with this card, Gravekeeper's Trap, and this card, because if you read what this card, we'll just go to the most expensive one. Read what this card does. You can activate only by paying 1,000 life points while there are 15 or more cards in your graveyard. Both players swap their cards in their graveyard with the cards in their deck. Interesting. Like I said, if you can find some weird interaction with this, or if someone can find some weird interaction with this, one of these, if not all of them, could end up being super valuable, right? I look at the, this Magnificent Mavens version is an ultra rare. The gold rare versions are always cool. There's a lot of potential with this. Because it is on the higher end of the penny stock, nearing the $5 mark. I don't know if it's something I'd rush out and get, but it's definitely something to keep your eye on. Definitely something, because it's not going to get a reprint anytime soon, right? Skill drain. There are actually a lot of cards. We're gonna take a look at this set, probably next week actually. So if you guys want to make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that, or at the very least just come back next Sunday when I post, because I post them every Sunday anyway. Because there are a lot of interesting penny stocks and Magnificent Mavens, right? And the thing is with Skill Drain, I am aware that there are no decks that are really good right now with Skill Drain, but there are a lot of, like, not like fun, but there are a lot of interesting things you can do with Skill Drain. And the fact that this card just got its reprint is just super good. We can look at other versions. I'd assume it's the cheapest version, though. It is, right? And so that makes it a really solid target for a version to buy. Now, it's probably a bit of a chase card. Um, there's 254 from Gamer's Choice at $4.99. But no such thing as a sure thing. But Skill Drain, this version of Skill Drain being worth more than $5 in the near future, feels pretty likely. Feels pretty likely. And there are a lot of interesting decks with it. I look at the way Crystal Beast, we just got to talking about Crystal Beast with this card. I mean, yeah, Sapphire Pegasus, Ruby Carbuncle, Ultimate Dragon, obviously, but that even Ultimate Dragon, like, you really, the way Crystal Beast is functioning right now, you really don't need to use their effects. And if you could potentially, if you're, because some people are running just like the Mystic Mind version, some people are running a version where they're running like 3 Pegasus, 3 of the new Rainbow Dragon, or Ultimate Dragon, whatever his name is, the new Crystal Beast card, that special summons a Crystal Beast card, and then just like 5 other names, right? So they can summon Ultimate Dragon. Ultimate Dragon under Skill Drain is really solid. And I still say this too about Skill Drain, one of the most appropriately named cards in the entire game. But it's cool. Blackwing got a bunch of new support too. That was obviously Darkwing Blast, so that's interesting. Harpy's, like I said, we're gonna spend probably next week talking about Magnificent Mavens. But this week I wanted to talk about these guys. Now here's the thing. For those with a heart condition, please brace yourself. Actually, anybody can brace yourself, but especially those who don't do well with shock. Okay, I will say this about Sword Soul. This card is worth over $100. There was actually, I recently went to locals, and there was a guy playing Synchron, interestingly enough. And they said that they pulled packs of Legendary Duelist Synchro Storm, and they pulled the Baron de Fleur. So shout out to that. I don't even think he got a box. I think he got like 2 or 3 packs. So lottery tickets are lottery tickets, but and it was worth like $50 at the time too. Which is funny because if you had got it then, here's the thing. Yes, you can run this archetype. We'll just take a look at the whole archetype now. Yes, you can run Sword Soul without Baron de Fleur, right? And if we look at Sword Soul as an archetype, without the Tenny stuff, without the adventurer stuff, without whatever. Um, it's really cheap right now. Like if we go, I like to get deck cores from eBay. I know some people are like, oh, minutes, everything. I always tell people, look at what you're getting, right, out of eBay. Look at what is actually being sold, and you could actually gain some real value. Like, just take a look at the first one for $50. You can get 3 Moyi, 3 of that one. Taya, that's Taya. I don't know what the Iris Swordsman, I think. 3 Long Young. This one isn't like. See, this is a good example of one that is not worth it. Cause this right here, this. I mean, for $25, you get 3 of each of these cards, which is in this picture, and for $25, 3 of the Grandmaster, 3 of the level 10, 3 of the other one. I don't, does anybody know what that with this card, the Sinister Sovereign, uh, King Longyang? What does that do? I don't know what that does. But 3 Moyi. You also are getting 3 Ecclesia, 3 Longyang, 3 Taya, Emergence, Sacred. Like you get a full core for $25. This says 9 available. It will probably say 8 available at the very least if you check it out, because Sword Soul's a deck I actually didn't get a chance to mess around with until Master Duel, and I actually really enjoy how the deck functions. I actually really like how it plays. MCO40 talks about how it's like a fair deck, which I actually do agree. It actually is a relatively fair deck, even though they are 1 card synchros. That's just where the game is at right now. We scoot on down here to this 130 version. Now this one brings up a good point. The Tenny stuff is in this one. Pot of Desires is in this one. This also comes with like Droll effect. That's what I'm saying. Like, yes, if it's just the core that we were just looking at for $130, it's bad. But you're getting Droll and Lockbird, you're getting Desires, you're getting, and Veilers are cheap, but you're getting Cosmic Cyclones, D-Barriers, Rivalries, you're getting Boxia. Boxia is kind of cheap too. Boxia is like an 8, like a 10-cent card, I believe. I guess we could take a look at the Sword Soul stuff, or the Tenny stuff here too. Because the thing is too, when it comes to TCG Player, um, when it comes to trying to get deck cores on TCG Player, usually you don't stumble upon one seller who has 3 of all of it. So you're getting like 3 of this card, 3 of this card, 2 of this card, 1 of this card from this person, 3 of this card, 1 of this card, 1 of this card from this person, 1 of this card, 1 of this card from that person, right? And all it takes is one of those people to pull a fast one, and now you gotta go through the refund thing and do all of that, and it's just a bit of a mess. But whereas you get it on a core, if you don't get a package, you're not getting the package. This is not that good. So it really looks like that first one we took a look at. Took a look at was pretty solid. Um, Pre-sale stuff. So it is starting to get a little weaker as we move it, as far as because Sword Soul's not that bad, but it's certainly not as good as it used to be. So it is starting to get a little weaker. I want to take a look real quick though at the Tenny stuff. So we got well, let's go to the very last page first. Okay, so you don't run any of this entire page. You do run Vishuda though. And so you can get this card, quarters, right? I think, do you run this card? I think some people run it at 1, maybe not. You do run this, and usually at 1. So that's like 50 cents right there. And then coming down here, you do run Adahara play sets, $1.50, so we're at $2. This is another $1.50 play set, so we're at $3.50. And then really that's it. You do run Monk, which is appearing to be one of the more expensive ones. Some people run this card. I don't really like this card. And then you can obviously run this guy too in the deck because it's a Tenny card. So it synergizes with the Tenny stuff, but it's also a level 8. So it synergizes with the Sword Soul stuff. but you don't necessarily need to, right? What were we at? This was it was 350 plus Rising Rampage Rare. Is another 350, so that's for $7. And that's the full 10 package right there, right? And then the other staples like Pot of Desires, Droll and Lockbird. Obviously, you need like level 8 Synchro Toolbox, right? Like Stardust Dragon, Stardust Spark Dragon, Scrap Dragon, Crimson Blader. I mean, there's so many really good level 8 Synchro monsters. Boxia. Um, Now, the Baron de Fleur question. Do you need Baron de Fleur? If you want to have success playing Sword Soul, yes, you do. It's that simple. If you want to have just fun and you're just looking for an archetype to pick up, we're talking about Tenny Sword Soul here specifically. And you can run pure Sword Soul, kind of like Tri Brigade. There's a Tri Brigade version there's a pure Tri Brigade version of that deck where you just run like a bunch of hand traps and then Tri Brigade cards. You can do that with Sword Soul as well. Like really, you only need a Mo Yi and another or another Worm monster, right? Or another Sword Soul card, and you can basically get very close to full combo, right? So we're talking about $7 from these TCG players to pick up the Tenny stuff, and then Sword Soul is about $25, so that's $32 after taxes, shipping, and fees. You're looking at $35 for what feels like a relatively competitive meta deck. And if you really want to go there, $100 for a Baron de Fleur. I know it's gonna get we all know it's getting a reprint soon, and it's gonna make the price plummet. Maybe wait for that, right? But even still, $140 for a deck that could top a regional, which Tenny Sword Soul can do that. I mean, your matchups have to be pretty good, and your opening hands have to be pretty good, but you can do that with Sword Soul. You're in a pretty good spot. But let me know what you guys think. What are the best selling cards under $5 or left? Let me know in those comments down below. Do you think Sword Soul is a viable budget deck now? Let me know in those comments down below as well. Make sure you guys click that like button to show support for the channel. Subscribe for even more content. But most importantly of all, have a good day.